My name is Haley Jones, and this is my problem of practice defense. My problem of practice is titled A Qualitative Case Study Exploring the Relationship Between Teachers' Alternative Certification Experience and Their Self-Efficacy in Their First Year of Teaching. To begin, I'm going to go over the research problem and purpose statement, and then I will go into a review of the literature and go into my methodology, my findings, and then I will end with the implications and a conclusion. To begin, this problem of practice is all about alternative certification programs to teaching and teachers' self-efficacy in teaching. Currently, teachers are leaving the profession at a higher rate than normal. Teachers are burned out, tired, and over-anxious whenever they are first entering the classroom. And a lot of teachers do not feel that they have the necessary skills to continue on, especially in low-income urban environments. With alternative certification programs rising, they have the opportunity to train teachers and to specifically train them for the schools that they are going to be working in. Teacher preparation has grown over the past decade. Teachers are able to earn their certification through these alternative certification programs that include multiple different components, which are inputting teachers into the classroom with a multitude of different experiences. Many teachers are not prepared to deal with the myriad of issues they face with diverse populations. Herman found that positive teacher efficacy actually helped with teacher attrition and helped teachers to stay in the classroom. This study sought to understand the teachers' perceptions in their first year of teaching, specifically examining the relationship between their alternative certification program component and their self-efficacy. What I want to prove, or my purpose statement, is that although alternative certification programs help to expedite the certification process for teaching professionals, many programs are offering the bare minimum. They are excluding clinical experience, culturally relevant pedagogy, and mentorship in their preparation programs. This study provides critical feedback on the different alternative certification programs to prepare pre-service teachers by assessing different aspects of the programs to ultimately discover what components of such programs impact the self-efficacy. Nearly 25% of teachers in inner city schools left the teaching profession after their third year of teaching. This is where there's a need to examine the factors that initiate this exodus to decrease such a staggering statistic. The research questions of this study are twofold. There's the central research question, and there are 3 sub-questions that help to support this central research question. The central research question states, in what ways do components of alternative teachers preparation programs impact the candidate's self-efficacy to teach in low-income urban schools? This is supported by 3 sub-questions. These 3 sub-questions are, what aspects of alternative certification programs help to increase the teacher's self-efficacy? In what ways did relationships or lack of relationships with a mentor teacher impact the teacher's feeling of success? How are culturally relevant pedagogy and clinical internship represented throughout the teacher's alternative certification experience? This study was then framed through the theoretical framework of Robert Bandura's theory of self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is broken down into 4 different experiences. Mastery experiences, or outcomes from actions that impact the self-worth. Vicarious experiences, or actions of others that are affecting the teacher, so think observations. Verbal persuasions, the communication of others that impact the self, so feedback, thinking feedback for our teachers. And then psychological traits, the emotions that determine the vision of the self. So these are the emotions that the teachers are coming in with. And the entire study is framed through this self-efficacy. In order to really fully understand the research problem and the purpose, a review of the literature was necessary to see where the gap was. This review of the literature included the importance of teacher preparation, which Darling Hammond offered that teacher training is not only one of the most demanding professional trainings, but that teachers need to be models of exemplary practice, connect theory to learning, and must be able to understand the social emotional learning of children. Next, this literature review really went into teacher preparation in low income and investigated how teacher preparation is happening in low income. Low income areas have diverse student populations with different socio-emotional and learning needs. Low income districts often deal with higher rates of teacher attrition and teacher shortages in many subjects, including math, science, technology, and special education. This led to the look into alternative certification programs in general and their history and how they came about. Alternative certification programs research added to the body of literature on teacher preparation. An essential component that contributes to teacher preparation programs' effectiveness, especially in low-income urban areas, is clinical experience and the inclusion of CRP as a tenet with their preparation experience. And finally, after looking into the alternative certification, this problem of practice looked into self-efficacy in the workplace. West and Frey-Clark found that teachers who are alternatively certified suffer from a lack of self-efficacy in their first 10 years of teaching. Therefore, they discuss the importance of cultivating self-efficacy within pre-service teachers. Self-efficacy, in terms, attributes to student achievement. After a review of the literature, then the problem of practice went through a review of the methods. This section is going to describe the methodology, the data collection, and data analysis portion of the problem of practice. To begin, I first had 4 different participants. All of these 4 participants were first-year teachers at a low-income urban elementary school in a specific ISD. These participants were used as pseudonyms. They have Mary, Sage, Gabby, and Tori. 2 of the participants went through an online certification program, and 2 of them went through a residency type program where they did have a full year of clinical experience before earning their alternative certification. So in order to understand more of the methods, this problem of practice went through 4 different phases. The first was to send out the consent forms for the participants and have them agree to participate in the study. Then in phase 2, I sent out open-ended sentence stems to all of the participants through a Google form. Each of the participants filled this part out, and I completed classroom observations on each of these participants. During this time that I was collecting this data, I was also analyzing this data and looking for themes, which I will describe in the next slide. In phase 3 of this, I completed interviews with all of the participants at the end of their first semester teaching. Due to this year being a COVID year, the first semester actually ended in January, and I was able to complete the interviews in January at the end of their first semester of teaching. And then in phase 4, I analyzed all of the data together and went through Lichtman's 6 steps to really analyze the data and make sure that I was coding the data correctly and with themes and getting emerging themes from the data, which will help to create my findings. These data collection methods and data analysis methods that I found was first initial coding, reviewing this coding, developing an initial list of categories, modifying this initial list, revisiting the categories and subcategories, and then going from categories to concepts. This brought out emerging themes and eventually led to the findings. The findings of this study is broken down into 3 different ways. First are just the findings overall. Then this section is going to go over how the findings related to the literature, and finally, how the findings related to the theoretical framework. Remember, the central research question of this problem of practice was, in what ways do components of alternative certification preparation programs impact the candidate's self-efficacy to teach in low-income urban schools? There were 3 major findings for this study. The first is the importance of mastery experience. 2 of my participants did not have any mastery experience. They did not have any clinical experience before coming into the classroom. That was provided by their program specifically. So this lack of mastery experience in the alternative certification program led these participants to specifically lean on their psychological traits for their self-efficacy. The 2 participants also relied on their emotions to guide their efficacy within the first year. And normally these emotions were not positive. They relied on their negative emotions, which ended up hindering their self-efficacy within the first year. The second major finding was the structured internship. Structured clinical internships included mentoring, increased the self-efficacy. The lack of mentorships negatively impacted their self-efficacy, and they did not receive the nurturing and the coaching from a mentor teacher with the other 2 program participants. So the 2 that did not have this clinical experience were actually not able to see it in a structured way. One of the participants actually ended up having teaching experience from being a paraprofessional at a past school, but because it wasn't a structured internship, She was not able to rely on this source of efficacy. And finally was the importance of culturally relevant pedagogy. CRP helped to increase the self-efficacy within first-year teaching at low-income urban schools. This diversity training paired with clinical internship really helped them put theory to practice and improve the self-efficacy in teaching, especially in regards to meeting the needs of diverse learners. All 4 participants were at an elementary school where majority of the students are from different backgrounds. There are refugee students, there are African American students, and Hispanic students. A lot of the students and a lot of the teachers are not matching in their cultural backgrounds, and it's very necessary for those teachers to have the skills in order to be able to teach students from all different backgrounds. This related to the literature in 3 different ways. For finding 1, the literature perspective on this was that mastery experiences are the strongest source of efficacy. Combining both fieldwork and coursework resulted in a higher satisfaction. And this was true in my study. Also for 2, structured clinical internship, the longer and structured clinical internship leads to less anxiety, improved self-efficacy, and the ability to cope with stress. And finding 3, culturally relevant pedagogy helped to increase the self-efficacy. So as a tenet for teacher preparation program is culturally relevant pedagogy. And this was all true for my study. Looking at the results in a theoretical framework way for Robert Bandura's, mastery experiences ended up being the strongest source for teachers who had clinical internship. This led to positive psychological traits. Vicarious experiences was not as strong or as frequent, but it helped all the teachers when watching veteran teachers. Verbal persuasions was also not as strong a source of efficacy for all 4 participants. However, because it wasn't that frequent, it still did affect their self-efficacy. It just was not as strong. And finally, psychological traits was strongest source of efficacy with teachers who did not have mastery experiences. So I had 2 different groups and 2 different findings. Mastery experiences was strong when it was there, and that was their strongest source of efficacy. When the mastery experiences was absent, teachers were relying on their own emotional traits. The implications of this study was that school leaders need to be aware, be prepared, and create culture. School leaders need to be aware of the programs from which brand new teachers are coming. They need to understand the background and needs of new teachers. They must prepare new teachers based off differentiated trainings and create school culture in which all teachers can thrive regardless of their background. Alternative certification programs need to include this blended programming. They should implement programming that allows teachers to connect theory to practice. Clinical internship and culturally relevant pedagogy result in powerful trainings for teachers. And finally, first-year teachers should seek out opportunities. First-year teachers should seek out district trainings and other professional development opportunities to fill their gaps based on their needs and based on their experience in the program. To conclude this problem of practice, I want to leave you with that teachers and preparation programs help to either foster or hinder the self-efficacy of teachers. This problem of practice investigated the alternative certification program components that most impact a teacher's self-efficacy within their first year of teaching. I plan to distribute this through the school district administrators and school leaders within my district and give a professional presentation to the executive directors of my pyramid or of my region and also my principal. I also plan to reach out to different alternative certification programs to share my research and to give them a professional presentation as well, and then attend professional conferences. My whole goal is to get this research out there and to really help alternative certification programs and school leaders to better understand the needs of first-year teachers and make it a differentiated need. I just first want to say also thank you to my faculty advisor and to everyone for supporting me through this problem of practice journey. This does conclude my defense presentation, so thank you all for everything you have done.